Can somebody check me to see if it's showing up in the channel? Can somebody check me to see if it's showing up in the channel? Well,
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. I need to kill that so I don't echo all over the place. Can somebody check me to see if it's showing up in the channel?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Feedback is a wonderful thing.
We have to click this.
Okay. So I will also go ahead and just start a Zoom recording here. Somebody might want to remind me to, well, it'll end when the meeting ends. Okay. We'll forward this computer. Okay. All right. I think we got all those preliminaries taken care of. Thanks for the reminder, Joyce.
Sure.
So the bottom half of our minutes from November. We didn't have an official meeting in December since we had a Christmas party. So this is our first chance to have the GA look at the notes, the minutes from November.
Three lights.
Send the request.
Now somebody else has got the YouTube channel on that we can hear, so you might want to not watch both of
Turn on
them.
my entry lights.
I've sent the request.
Okay.
It's the number
Okay.
down for participants. What's it say? 22.
So I know the meeting notes must not be too exciting, but if anybody's got any questions or comments about what they might have read there, speak now, or we'll go ahead and just consider them approved. Okay, that's the minutes. Okay. So welcome to the January meeting of the Boston Astronomical Society. We'll start off by recognizing any visitors or guests who are here for the first time. If you'd like to and introduce yourself, we'll be glad to meet you.
Hi, I'm Katie. This is my first time.
Hi, Katie. Are you new to Austin?
Nope, but I just signed up for this club because I got a telescope for Christmas.
Great.
And I don't know how to use it. So
Okay, well, probably the best thing we can do for you is get you to one of our star parties. Either we have private and public star parties. I think the public ones right now are a little more frequent. We're not having them right now obviously because of the Omicron variant. But we may be trying again in February or as soon as we can. We have monthly public star party at either Pedernales State Park or Inks Lake State Park. And then we also have the private parties out at our ranch, Bad Wolf Ranch, north of Lampasas. Okay.
What part of town do you live in, Katie?
I'm in Hyde Park.
Right in the middle, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I know I can see Jupiter from my balcony. So I don't know if I can, I don't know what I can do with that, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Okay. Well,
Basically where I started. You can do plenty.
Great, thanks.
Wait till you see Saturn and Mars and then get into some of the deep sky objects.
Yeah.
Then this will become an obsession, and before you know it, your house is overflowing with small eyepieces and you're hanging out with other astronomers.
That's why I'm here. Thank you.
And you buy a labeler in Ziploc bags so you can figure out what the hell everything is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then-
this is great.
Organized person, you do that.
And then someday you have to get a bigger vehicle so you can tow the trailer that your telescope lives in.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is
I have 3
dangerous.
in my backyard.
Okay, don't scare her, okay?
No, I love having gear. This is great.
Well, this is definitely a gear-oriented hobby. So anybody else new tonight?
Barbara, I'm new.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi. Um, my goal is just to learn to identify all the constellations with the naked eye.
That's an admirable goal.
Yeah.
That's a good one to start on.
I need a dark sky though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, we can definitely provide that out at the ranch, and even pretty good out at least out at Pedernales.
Yeah.
Make out, yeah, maybe half the constellations out there, not all of them.
Okay.
But there are 88 of them. You got to go to the southern hemisphere to get them all now.
I don't want those. That's okay. Just the north.
All right. Well, we'd be glad to help you work on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else new?
Now I'm new. I'm on Slupnik Florin. Let's say my family signed me up over Christmas, but I have a longer interest already in astronomy, and I recently bought another telescope. And I think based on this, probably my family signed me up for it. I always intended to join the society, but I don't have enough time, I thought. But now I'm a member and looking forward to meeting some of you. I came across one of the your flyer, or sorry, that I don't know the correct name. And I saw some of the fantastic pictures some of you took, and although I really was very enthusiastic about that.
Yeah, we got a lot of fine astrophotographers in the club, and a larger family of astrophotographers around Austin too. So they're taking mind-boggling pictures these days. So
I actually got to know already one. Completely independent of a Greg's list.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be glad to meet you in person this spring sometime and help you with the telescope. And I've got to admit a couple more folks here. Okay. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? Okay, so we'll move on with the main business meeting, and it starts with the reports from officers, and we start with our vice president, who doesn't exist. So we are all kind of trying to fill in for the VP role. The role of the vice president is to basically organize our speakers for the meetings, and also they're in charge of the venue for the meetings. But Zoom's been our venue for so long, and really we only meet at the UT campus when we meet in person. But we try to keep a lineup of speakers on the horizon here, and we're kind of in a hole right now. So we have this month covered. And we don't have an official speaker for February or March yet, but I understand Chris has found us a speaker possibly for April with one of the local rocket companies, I think. Chris, are you?
I am here. That is correct. It's just tentative. We got confirmation today. We'll confirm a time, but we're really excited as they're in the the rocket astronomy science space, STEM space, but I think there'll be a lot of transferable concepts. So more to come on that. Just got the email today. We reached out to a variety of companies, and we're excited that one of them looks like it's coming forward.
Okay. Now we have a speaker in the wings, but that we have been trying to get on for over 6 months now, and he's adamant about only doing an in-person presentation. So we won't be able to get him on Zoom. So the next time that we do have an in-person meeting, most likely on the UT campus, we're going to try and get Don Olson on. My best way for describing Don is he is a forensic astroanthropologist. So he goes around the world looking at events in history that can be correlated with astronomical phenomena. So you may have thought that the Battle of Marathon occurred in September of whatever it was BC, but it was actually August. And Don was able to prove that by historical record clues about where planets, moons, stars were at the time. He's also determined that among the 26 people who claim to be, I don't know if you know the iconic soldier kissing the nurse on VJ Day at the end of World War II. Several people, nobody knows exactly who those folks are. There's several claimants, and Don's kind of narrowed it down, I think. But he did an excellent talk based on the shadows, the angle of the sun and the shadows in Times Square, with other evidence there to really nail down when it happened and also kind of eliminate some of the people that claim to have been that couple. Okay, so he gives great talks like that, and he hasn't been able to give one. He usually gets with us once a year or every 18 months, and he hasn't been able to do that since COVID. And I think he's got 2 or 3 presentations lined up. So we are anxiously looking forward to getting him this spring, if at all possible. Okay, so we'll work on speakers there. The next officer, Patrick, did you make it on? Our treasurer, Pat McPhee? I don't think so. Okay. I've been working, Patrick has been a little bit overwhelmed in the position here. And I've been helping him out here a bit lately. I think we're pretty copacetic on everything. Got the usual amount of money in the bank. I've got a couple of things to take care of this month: payments for insurance and our federal application for our nonprofit status. And so we'll be working on that in the next couple of weeks with Pat. This brings us to our outreach chair, Joyce Lynch, and I think she's got a few things to share with us.
Unfortunately, our first 2022 Star Party that was scheduled for last Saturday, we decided to cancel. There was concern about COVID, even though it's outside. There are people congregating at telescopes. There are people sharing eyepieces, and so that was a concern. And then also it turned out the weather was terrible anyway. So we'll try again. Our next event is February 5th at Inks Lake State Park. And then we have another one scheduled at, I think, let's see, what the date would be, I guess the 26th of February at Pedernales Falls. And hopefully we'll be able to do that better than we've had to cancel the last 2 at Pedernales. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in February. The list of star parties at Inks and Pedernales is finalized. It is in the newsletter that came out today. There's one exception. I did say that we would try to schedule. We have a couple of months at Pedernales when we don't have one scheduled, and we will schedule one in one or the other of those months to kind of make up for the fact that we were not able to go last Saturday. There are a couple of events that are coming up in January. A dark sky group in Liberty Hill and a scout group in North Austin have asked for us to come. I will be sending out emails to let people know about those opportunities and see if we can get some volunteers for that. I guess that's pretty much it.
Joyce, there's also one more event if I can add to your list.
Sure.
The Lampasas Friends of the Night Sky group are hosting a star party in partnership with Stoneledge Winery. So pizza and wine are involved and free for the astronomers that bring scopes. It's going to be held at the winery and it's located out in Lomita. So for those of you that don't mind making the trek, it's about the same drive time as it would take to get to our dark sky site up at Bad Wolf Ranch. And I'll provide Joyce with that information and distribute that out to the masses.
Okay.
Well, I've actually driven from Bad Wolf through Lomita a couple of times. It's back roads the whole way, but it's doable. So
yeah, there's the roads to get up to the winery are actually not that treacherous. It's pretty well paved. They sit on top of a very large mesa with a lot of big, wide open sky. And they have a large enclosed facility where the menu is going to be available. And then we'll be actually observing out amongst the wine vines. So it should be a good night. And they're also going to have some fire pits for roasting marshmallows. And it's a big family-friendly event.
Did you give a date, Dawn, or at least the month?
The 29th.
Of this month?
Yes.
Ah, okay. All right. Anything else, Joyce?
That's it for this, for outreach for the moment.
Okay, so I put up the schedule here for the star parties as it appears in the newsletter here. You guys can scan that. Okay. Oh, Tim's wanting in. Knock, knock. Yeah, can I ask somebody to kind of watch the waiting room there?
I'm doing that.
Okay, thanks. All right, so next on the agenda would be, can't see my agenda because I can't move my communications. All right, Sean Leary, who does the bulk of the work keeping our webpage and network stuff going. Sean on this evening?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to cover a couple of points. We can just mention this even though Sean's not here. I wanted to alert everybody that last month we converted over the payment processor that we use in Wild Apricot. And Wild Apricot is the business solution that hosts our website and manages our members. And you interact with Wild Apricot if you want to join the club and sign up, and you go through there with the membership stuff. Originally, it was using, it had an option for PayPal. And Wild Apricot has their own processor, one that they would rather use, and they give you a $400 discount if you get off of PayPal and use their processor. And after we had taken a look at it and seen that it really is very transparent, you don't even go into it like you do in PayPal necessarily. So it's able to process your payments kind of transparently. So we thought, okay, no brainer, we'll just switch over to this and save $400 a year. So I don't know if any of the new members have encountered that. And I guess if you still want to pay with PayPal, it's probably no longer an option. But I think if you use the new processor, it'll work for you. You don't have to you don't have to join up with this processor like you would have to join up to PayPal. So it'll take anybody's money anytime. Now, having said that, about Wild Apricot, we're not totally thrilled with Wild Apricot because they keep jacking up the price of their service. They provide all kinds of functions that you can use for managing organizations, and we only really use a handful of them. So we're looking at alternatives. And one of our members at large, Bob Snyder, was talking about a particular solution. I don't have it in front of me right now, Squarespace, which is actually like a storefront or and apparently storefront type applications have a lot of member management kind of facilities in it. So they were going to sign up for an account on that and kind of lined it up against Wild Apricot and see how the functionality played out. And so we may adopt something like that as an alternative to wild apricot and save us a little bit more money. You may detect a theme here. We are kind of on a trying to be cost conscious this year and cut some of our expenses. And then finally, we have been talking about user forums for a long time, and trying to get set up with some user forums for years and years. We were all on Yahoo group, and that's how the club pretty much communicated internally, member to member, chat, whatever. Yahoo went away, and we were thinking of using the facilities, I guess. I don't know if it's Wild Apricot or another supplier there to support some user forums. It seems to require a low-level network guy to help us out. We had a guy working for us that replaced our long-term guy, but he hasn't been very active lately, and it's like we're not making any traction with the forum. So Joyce has been working with one of our newer members, Adam. I can't think of his last name. But
I want pizza. Give me pizza.
Okay. Was that Adam? Is he on?
I don't think so. It's Adam Majdub.
No, that was David.
Okay.
Yeah, David speaking.
Joyce, why don't you just tell us a little bit about, he's picked an application called Signal, and he's already done some setup work for that.
Right. And I'll just say that I've had, Adam came to me with this idea of, with the thought that, wouldn't it be nice if people could communicate, members could communicate with each other and maybe set up an informal star party at Pedernales Falls or something like that. And so we started talking about it, and we were at one point talking about WhatsApp, but he knows this app called Signal, and he thought that would be a better way to go. He has set up a group, and he told me how to become a member of that group, and it was very easy. I have done that. So what he'll be doing is writing up some instructions for people about how to become a member of the group, and then we will have it set up, and we can, talk about all sorts of things on it. And as I said in my newsletter blurb today, anything astronomical. And it may be, those of you who've been around for a while, may be excuse me, reminiscent of the Yahoo groups. Sorry. But where we did at times go off on some tangents. That's it. I don't need voice anymore.
Oh, no.
Look for an email.
Okay. All right, Joyce, we're looking forward to seeing what's set up here and what we can do with it. I just alert the group that on Facebook, we have our Facebook page there, but kind of a related Facebook group is Austin Astrophotographers. And that's moderated by one of our members, Anis Abdul, who happens to be chief architect for a company called AirSyn, which is very much in this line of business. But he set up an AirSyn channel for Austin Astrophotographers. And any of you guys interested in astrophotography, you probably ought to get on that Facebook group if you can. But in particular, when you do, you can get into this channel, and it's extremely active. So there are any clear night, it just lights up with dozens of people getting on, and they're all with their own photography agenda. But they're all talking together about what they're doing and how things are going. And if somebody has a problem, they shout it out and they try to group solve it, things like that. So you might want to, if you're on Facebook, get search for Austin Astrophotographers, and it should have a sticky at the top that talks about this AirSend comm group. And sign up for that, and you can tap into a pretty good stream of astrophotography related goings on. Okay, so that brings us to Greg and our equipment chair. So Greg, a couple of points I'm sure you remember we'll talk about is what we're doing the observatories, but and the volunteers that the park needed for the road base.
Yeah, and unfortunately, John has been really difficult to get a hold of. I have not talked to him in the last month. I know he's swamped. I think the last I heard, they still have not replaced their water plant operator so John has basically been just running the water plant every day. That's John Alvis, the superintendent for the park. Still have not heard whether or not they've actually gotten the tractor back to cut the pathway to fill with gravel for the walkway. I know that they're waiting for that. They do have road base on site. I'm actually going to go out there tomorrow just to check things out and see see if I can find somebody who can actually give me an answer. But we would like to be able to schedule a work day when we can get as many volunteers as possible together to try to do this pathway from the parking lot along the side of the barn out through the gate and out to the hinge. The plan is that they'll use the tractor to essentially dig a wide, shallow trench. Put in filter base or filter cloth rather, and then fill that in with the road base, and then level it out and roll it. So they, they'll have at least one person. They'll have one person there to operate the tractor, but they're just going to need a whole lot of extra hands just to fill the trench with road base and smooth it out, rake it out, smooth it out, and all that, tamp it down. As soon as I can, this is out at Pedernales Falls State Park at the Star Theater. So that's the big job coming up out at the falls. Then the other big job we've got coming up is that we are being donated 2 observatory buildings, which we need to disassemble. The one of them should be, I think, pretty quick to disassemble if we can get a crew of at least 5 people. The second one would be a little bit more. Little more involved. The first one is a 12-foot Explorer dome on a 12 by 12 square building. The original plan was to put the 12-foot Explorer dome out at Pedernales Falls State Park. We have permission from the park to store all of the pieces on the park and in their next to their maintenance shed area. I think last time I talked to John Alvis, they're going to have to do some more paperwork with the Parks and Rec department downtown to get permission to actually put the building up. So it's not a it's not an instant thing there. The one hitch in that whole plan, though, is that the original plan for their observatory would call for a round building instead of a square one, and so he's not sure that they can get a square building past the bureaucrats downtown. But he said that the Friends of Pedernales group would probably come up with the money for the round building, which from Explorer Dome would cost about $2,000. but he thinks that they can come up with that money pretty easily. The other observatory, the building that we're being donated, is a 12-foot by 16 roll-off roof observatory. And that one is stick built, so it's going to be a little more work to take that one down. Just for one thing, the roof sections are too heavy to just pull off as is. They're going to have to be disassembled. And at some point, we need to start gathering volunteers to do that.
So the observatory dome, do you have to wait on Tom to get freed up time-wise, or can we just do that anytime?
I think we could do that anytime. Because like I said, we have permission to store the pieces of that building on the park land up by the maintenance shed. So that part is easy. You know, we can tear down the 12-foot dome immediately. So as soon as we can get volunteers, you know, to all have their schedule line up at the same time, preferably a Saturday or a Sunday, then we can go out there. I'll let the landowner know, and we'll come out there and we'll start taking that thing apart. And I think we can pretty easily take it down in one day.
Okay. Now you're going to need a flatbed trailer rental.
Yeah.
And you only have to move it about 5 or 6 miles.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically take it down, put it on the trailer, carry it over to the park, and store it.
Yep.
Off the trailer. Okay.
Yep. And all these exterior panels and the dome itself can be stored outside without any trouble. They're weatherproof materials. The floorboards and the interior paneling, I think, would need to be stored inside.
Okay.
So we may have
we don't have to plan it out here in this meeting, Greg. So let's get half a dozen people ID'd, and I mean, I can put out a blast, email blast to the whole club for some volunteers here.
Okay.
End up getting more people than we need that way, but I can also think of 2 or 3 people to just shout at, and we may be able to get, if all we need is 6, I think we may be able to just call up a few people and then schedule the time.
I think 5 or 6 would be ideal.
Okay. All right. Anything else equipment wise?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll move on to member services. We don't have a member service chair at this time. So I have Chris's name on here because I got a couple of questions for him, and we were going to talk about, he's been doing some work on InReach on astronomy, what we're calling Astronomy 101. First, Chris, I noticed in the November notes that you guys were kind of getting ready to maybe make an order of the RASC handbooks, the observing guides, and I didn't hear anything else after that. So did that not come together, or is it something that's still possible?
No, that's a great question, Terry. We had talked about it. We had not done it yet. I think we would still be willing. I'd be willing to do that. I think someone had a good suggestion when the last time we did this, and idea being this is a really helpful guide, whether you are a beginner or a veteran pro. There's just a lot of information in there, from the fundamentals to some really pretty advanced topics, and just good fundamentals of understanding whether it's optics or the sky or how objects move. I mean, there's just something for everyone. So this is something that I believe the club had ordered en masse. And so I forget who had mentioned this, who was involved in this project last time, and I am willing to take that on this time and just kind of be a conduit. So we want to do a big group order, then maybe our first in-person meeting, there'll be a nice box. So they're not out yet, but hopefully they'll be out very soon. We get a little bit of discount if we order them in bulk through the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. So that would be something that might be fun for us as a club to do.
Yeah, I think the cost on these is about $29, $30, something like that. We will get some kind of discount, but if you're interested in, this is a very, very detailed handbook. And you can go just Google, RASC Handbook, and you'll land on a page like this. You can find out what it's all about. There are people that just love this thing, so they're pretty eager on getting the updates every year. Okay.
I actually
All right.
have mine from 2019. I mean, there's a lot there that just, went well over my head. But again, there was a lot of really interesting, very fundamental things on understanding meteors, comets, dust. I found a lot of the optics and understanding how my eye worked was very interesting. And, for the engineer, you're going to be in heaven. For everyone else, you're going to find some really good nuggets of understanding in here.
Okay, so the next steps on that again are, Chris?
By chance, who was involved at last time? 'Cause I think there was already a site set up for us, like just
that's Mark Lyon. To my knowledge, we haven't picked him up, and since Mark Lyon was handling that kind of personally, he's a former treasurer. He's still an active member.
We reach out to Mark then. That's the next step, and we'll have a report out, if not by next meeting, over email.
Okay. All right. So at the EC meeting we had last week, Chris kind of gave us an overview. He's looking at 3 astronomy, not really textbooks, but and I think they're Astronomical League associated, at least a couple of them are, that could be used as guides for introductory astronomy. So we're thinking about holding, acquiring some of the books, organizing some people that are interested in let's call it training, and working with those books and some hands-on experience out in the field for some introductory astronomy. So anything else you want to say about that, Chris?
Hey, Terry, I would say, well, it won't be this month, but I will work with Joyce. We'll finalize that. And I think what we were kind of brainstorming is this is literally one of my names for this is kind of an unboxing party. And so I forget one of our new members. Welcome so much. Glad you're here. We really want to provide some very fundamental information. I'm not even the same ballpark as Terry and the other officers. They've been very kind to me as a newer person, and I've never been. They've always been very gracious with their time, their information, and helping me really orient the sky and understanding which way is up with the telescope. And the Astronomical League puts out some really helpful tutorials for beginners. And Joyce sent me this one, and I got this one, Universe Sampler, Journey Through the Universe for the Beginner. And there's some really just neat principles that makes the sky much more accessible, much more quickly. And of course, there's lots of good stuff online, but someone's done a lot of great homework for us. So I think we're talking about doing like a session 1, like in this first quarter of a Journey Through the Universe, and then maybe a session 2. And of course, someone can always buy the book, and maybe we can put a link to it. Exploring the starry realm, tools and techniques for discovering celestial wonders. So for anyone that's brand new or watching this recording later on, there's some really helpful one-on-one tutorials, whether it's for a young adult or an older adult. We will help. And yes, we'll put links to these books here. And that's something that we'd have like a one-time session, either virtually, down the road in person, really kind of work through part of the book. And then we'd have a second session, actually, let's go out and observe and put some of these principles into practice. So we'll have definitive information for that next meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. So I know that Domingo had been talking about trying to organize a members only star party at Bad Wolf for the 29th. Domingo, are you on tonight? I haven't heard from him in a while, though. I kind of like the idea of what Don's got going over in Lomeda, just a few miles to the west of Bad Wolf for the 29th. I don't know if they're going to let us stay out there, how late they might let us stay out there, but it always, that is new moon, so you could always segue over to Bad Wolf and set up for the remainder of the night if you wanted to, if you go to the event in Lomeda. So yeah, Don, get us information on that as soon as you can, and I think you might get some pretty good attendance out there.
Awesome. They haven't actually put sort of an end time. They're well aware that if the skies are good and the astronomers are willing and they keep us supplied in ample food and beverage, that we'll be out there for some time. So I don't think they would be against, especially the astronomers, staying on after the event.
Great. I think then we just lean that direction. Okay. We've also been talking about for astrophotography, trying to do some support for some members that are kind of been frustrated just trying to get started in astrophotography. And we haven't made a lot of progress, but Bob Snyder said, well, we may be just trying to do too much to start with. And he's suggesting that we get a group of people who need some help together, get out on the field, but we don't have to go to a particularly dark site. We can find a Bortle 5 here close to the city and just work on the basics, help them with their equipment and basically get the fundamentals down, like polar alignment and tracking and composing with the camera, guiding if necessary, and maybe work on a very simple goal like get an image of the Pleiades or even the moon or something, just to get the imaging train all together and all the pieces working together and talking to each other. So Bob is going to help us lead that, and we're shooting maybe to try and get something in March for that. So I know a lot of you guys out there have been asking for help for astrophotography, and it's been kind of frustrating. We're going to try and get something going this spring along the lines I described there.
Terry, I've been wrestling with it too, and I think that sounds like a great approach, because I have to say it's easier for me in the middle of the city to just try to work out all my problems, without spending, an hour to get to a site and then another hour to set my equipment up and all that, Yeah, I can play with polar alignment in my backyard. And that, you could spend 2 hours on that, just going through all the steps and the different ways to do it and all that. And it's something so fundamental. So I applaud the approach of, let's just keep it simple and do it in the middle of the city and not worry about the fact that there's light pollution.
Yeah, so that's what we're aiming for. So Bob's traveling in Tennessee, I think, for the next couple of weeks. So we get him back, we'll start firming up some plans for that. Okay, next up is the Al Corner. Dawn, do you have anything for us this month?
I actually do have a few things. The first is announcing change to an already existing program, which is the Youth Astronomer program. So they have taken that original program and separated that into a silver and gold level. I'm providing the link in the chat right now. So if you know any youth under the age of 18 that are interested in pursuing any of the Astronomical League programs, that does now make 4, I believe, programs that are exclusively set up for our young astronomers. The other thing I wanted to let folks know about is that the dates for ALCON 2022 have been set. We are keeping our fingers crossed that the annual conference put on by the Astronomical League is not canceled for a 3rd time. So it will be held in Albuquerque, New Mexico, sponsored by the Astronomical League and the Albuquerque Astronomical Society. And those dates are July 28th through the 30th. And I'm putting the link to that website in the chat right now. They're looking at opening up registration within the next week or so. So keep an eye on that website. And if you're interested in attending, I highly suggest reserving your lodging now, because my guess is that space is going to be rather limited due to COVID situations. And most of the general hotels that are assigned to the conferences tend to get sold out early. The other thing I wanted to make sure everyone was aware about is that the Texas Star Party, which is being held this year, April 24th through May 1st, which is outside of Fort Davis on the Prude Ranch, which is just down the mountain, about 16 miles from McDonald Observatory in West Texas, is still holding registration. So you can actually still get in on the lottery for housing if you're interested in securing a specific either bunkhouse, cabin, or so forth. That will be open through midnight tomorrow. And I'll go ahead, for those of you that are sort of new to the Texas Star Party, put that link in the chat as well.
Okay, thanks, Dawn.
That's all I've got, unless there are any questions.
Now, just kind of scanning the chat here, and I saw, let's see, we had a question from Katie was asking about carpools. Yes, Katie, if we do member star parties, or even the public parties out at the state park, we can find you somebody to catch a ride with. Just let us know your need. You can contact, put the request out at Contact AAS that you're interested in attending a star party, and can you get some help with carpooling.
This is the kind of thing that the Signal app is going to be great for.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly, Joyce. So not a problem. And I have to admit, the first few times I drove out to Bad Wolf in the dark, it's kind of scary. So it helps to go with somebody who knows the way.
Yeah, I don't see that well driving at night. So that's the thing that's like kept me from trying to get out anywhere to public stuff before. So
yeah, well,
and also for members only star parties at Bad Wolf, you can bring camping gear or RV, tent, whatever you have, and stay out overnight. So you can drive back during the daytime the following day. So that's something to consider as well. One thing I did also want to mention, and you'll probably be hearing a lot more of this once I connect with Joyce, in the course and scope of my daytime job with the Hill Country Alliance as the Night Sky Program Coordinator, I am getting a lot more requests from a whole bunch of groups throughout the Hill Country for astronomers for star parties. So coming up on the horizon, I can let you know sometime in early spring, we're looking to partner with Jester King Brewery. So I'll be sending out inquiries to both AAS and a lot of the other regional astronomy clubs for interested telescopes and operators. And also coming up at the end of March, tentatively March 26th, Hill Country Alliance is partnering with the Devils River State Natural Area Conservation Organization. And we are going to be holding a private party for their conservation members out there. It is quite a drive. It's about 4.5 hours. So carpooling will definitely be encouraged, but it does come with free tour privately for the astronomers of the park there, and also overnight accommodations for anyone wanting to camp at the facility. So I'll provide Joyce with more of that information, and we'll continue to feed her star party inquiries throughout the Hill Country as they come about. And
as a side, Devil's River is probably the darkest area remaining in Texas.
It is, yes. It's right there up with Big Bend, close to between about Bortle 1 and Bortle 2.
Okay, moving on to other business. It's the time of year to start thinking about the nominating committee. We put a committee together to help us form our next term's crew of officers to lead the club. And we usually try to get 3 people there. They're going to go out and canvass the membership for people that can help out in some of the key positions. We've been struggling on this. We are currently operating with 3 key positions not filled, and it really puts a strain on us to have to spread ourselves out that thin. So I think we're going to push extra hard, encouraging some people to help contribute to the club here. We'll talk more about that next month. The timing of this is we form the nominating committee, they do their work and present, help me out, Joyce. They make the list of nominations is given in March and we vote in April.
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll be contacting some people about the nominating committee before this month is out. So just be aware of that. And I don't have any other business right now. So unless anybody else does, then we'll go ahead and move on to the presentation. Okay, Bill, are you ready to go?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be, as they say.
Okay. So normally our vice president would do an introduction for you. I think everybody's read your bio there in the newsletter, and I'm just going to let you take off. And anything you want to tell us about yourself before you get started, feel free. And we appreciate you coming out, and we're looking forward to hearing about the bloodlines.
Well, I think you have to stop sharing. There we go. First of all, thank you very much for letting me speak to you tonight. That's for sure. I will share my screen. I've been studying astronomy for 65 years. Yeah, I'm old. Okay. And people say, Bill, what's the matter with you? Why did you study something for like that so long? And there have been many, many reasons. You know, I was a teenager in the 60s, so we had the space race. It got me interested. My brother was older than me, but he was cool. So whatever he liked, I liked. Like many of you, I'll never forget the first time I saw Saturn's rings in a telescope. And so there's a lot of things that got me interested in astronomy. But then about 50 some years ago, I learned one particular item that really galvanized me. It got me very interested and kept me interested, I suppose. And a school teacher asked me to give a presentation on it. So I'm going to share my screen now on this presentation. And as you mentioned, it's called Bloodlines. And is my screen filling your screen now? Okay. All right. So Bloodlines might not sound like astronomy presentation, but it is a term that's used in genealogy and other places. And it has to do with where you come from physically. Where do you come from? And that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight. So this is, as you can see here, why I study astronomy. Now, every other time I've given this presentation, I've done it live and in person. And I would then ask the audience, ooh, I need you to participate. And the way you're going to participate is you're going to look at the person sitting next to you. Ha, 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 we can't do that now. And you will look at the person sitting next to you, specifically at the eye of the person sitting next to you. Look at them right in the eyes. That went over really big in grade schools, right? And not look at the pupil or the colored part, but look at the white of the eye of the person next to you. And we can't do that. So I think you can probably see the eye in this picture here. And if you look at the white part of the eye, what you'll see are red lines. And then I would begin by saying, you know, what are those red lines? And people would say, oh, those are veins and arteries. And the reality is that there are veins and arteries there, but they are so small and so skinny that they are actually transparent. And so you're not really seeing the arteries, you're seeing what's inside them. And here's a photograph that shows that. Those small veins and arteries are called capillaries. They are transparent. And so what you're seeing is the blood that's inside there. Now, people think of blood as a liquid, and there certainly is liquid in blood, but there's also a lot of living tissue in blood. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're saying, hey, Bill, this is an astronomy club, okay? Yeah, we're going to get to that. Trust me. And those red round things you see in the capillaries, those are red blood cells, as we call them. All right. Here's a close-up view of them. Red blood cells, they're round, they're doubly concaved, all right? And the fancy name for them is erythrocytes, okay? And so when you looked in the eye and you saw the red lines, you were seeing these, okay? And so we've answered that question. But then that brings another question. If these are what's making it red, why are they red? And the answer to that is they are filled with a molecule, packed with a molecule called hemoglobin, whose job is to take oxygen from our lungs to our brain and our muscles and the other organs that need it. Here is a diagram of the hemoglobin molecule. You know what a molecule is, right? It's a group of atoms in a particular structure. All right. Water is called H2O because it's got one atom of oxygen, two atoms of hydrogen. A water molecule has three atoms. This hemoglobin molecule, a typical hemoglobin molecule, has around 10,000 atoms. It's a protein. It's a very complex molecule, okay? And you can kind of see in this picture, it has four sections. You see the two red sections on the left and right, and the two blue sections up on the top and the bottom. That's just to show you what you can tell the difference between the sections. So four different sections, and in the center of each section is a special area called the heme. Here's another diagram, the same thing. You can see the four sections, and the white and red stuff are the hemes in the center of each of the four sections. Again, the job is to take oxygen throughout your body. Here is a close-up of the actual atomic structure in the heme. And what you see there in the very center is an orange atom. Each of those balls is a separate atom. You see the orange atom with the letters Fe, the chemical, the element symbol for iron. And then the red one, OH, that's oxygen, okay? And so the oxygen is connected to the iron, and that is the red that you see in the hemoglobin, in the blood cells, in the blood. And you might say, hey, wait, Bill, who are you kidding? I know what iron is. It's a gray metal, and oxygen is a clear gas. So what's with the red stuff that you're talking about? Well, actually, that sounds strange, but you've seen that before. Here is an ordinary, well, it's not ordinary, but here is a steel bolt. And this bolt sat outside for a very long period of time, and it's made out of steel, so it has a lot of iron, and it was outside for, 30 years. And the water vapor in the air and the water in the rain were running on it for all those years, and the oxygen and all that water got it rusty. And when the iron rusts, it turns red. And so that's why the hemoglobin looks red. It's the iron and the oxygen mixed together. Here is something, a little segue here. You probably wonder where this is going. This is a kind of crab, cleverly called the blue crab. It's got hemoglobin in its blood too, but instead of iron in the heme, he's got copper. And so you end up with a different color. And if you think it's not the blood that's making them blue, here's a bottle of crab blood, kind of like the bottles of crab blood everybody has at home, right? Boy, doggone it, it is blue. And so that's what makes the crab blue. And so it's the iron and the oxygen that makes our blood red. And where do we get that iron? Well, there's only one place you're going to get iron in your body, except if you take pills. But basically, it's the food that we eat, right? The fruits and vegetables and grain. That's where the iron is, and that's how it gets in our body. And you might say, hey, wait a minute. I only eat meat, so I don't eat fruits and vegetables and grain. Unlikely, but let's just say that was the fact. I guarantee you all your sources of meat are from animals that only eat fruits and vegetables and grain. And so they get their iron from the fruits and vegetables and grain too. So that's where we get it all from. So all the iron is in the food that we eat. That's how it gets in our body. And where does that food get the iron from? Well, all the fruits and vegetables and grain grow on plants. Oh, wait a minute. Well, before I do that, yeah, they grow on plants. But in case you don't believe me that there's iron in food, you know, if you buy a watermelon, it doesn't have a nutrition fact label, but here is a food product that does. And as you can see, I highlighted things like zinc and magnesium and phosphorus, and the orange line there is iron. There's plenty of iron in our food. Now, it could be added artificially, you know, after the food is produced, but most of it is natural. And as a matter of fact, I did an experiment with my two grandchildren a couple of years ago. We took a box of, Total breakfast cereal, and you put it in a blender with some water, and you stir it up and turn it into this big tan bucket of mush, right? And then you get out a nice magnet, and then there's that bag. It has all the chopped up cereal in water, and you get a nice powerful magnet, and you run it around, and you will find chunks of iron in there. I'd say about as much iron as you'd get in a small paper clip. And so yummy. That's what we're eating, okay? And yeah, there's really iron in there, all right? And we have photographic proof. So we get all our iron from plants. And so, well, where the next step in this detective story is, where do the plants get the iron? Well, if you look at this picture, you can see that they can only get it from one place, and that's the ground. And the other name that we have for the ground is planet Earth. So all the iron in our body ultimately comes from planet Earth. All right. And so the next question is, well, how did the iron get into Earth? Well, to answer that question, we have to go back before the Earth was created, before any of our planets were created, before the solar system was created, or the sun or any of the stars were created, all the way back to the beginning of the universe. Okay, 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang, as it was called, the beginning of our universe, which was kind of an explosion, not exactly an explosion, but we could call it that for all practical purposes. And it was really hot when it first created. It was so hot at the beginning of the Big Bang that there were no atoms. It was too hot for atoms to exist. It was a soup of subatomic particles. And so, but after a while, from the Big Bang, you had, after it cooled, the universe expanded, so that means it cooled. You ended up with a universe full of gas clouds, basically. And these gas clouds were hydrogen only. Those were the first atoms that created the simplest atoms with a single proton. And so the universe was basically clouds of hydrogen, and that's all. Certainly no other atoms, and certainly no iron. And it doesn't sound like a very interesting universe, but these clouds were very big. And when I say big, I mean many, many thousands of times the size of our solar system, which means they had a lot of mass, even though they were just hydrogen. And when you have a lot of mass, you have a strong gravitational field. And when you have a strong gravitational field, these clouds, because of gravity, just start to collapse on themselves. Okay? And they collapse due to gravity. And as they're collapsing, and there's nothing to stop them from collapsing, the pressure at the center of these clouds increases. And as the pressure increases, the temperature increases. This is totally automatic. It's just the way gravity works in our universe. And so they're getting hotter and hotter, hotter. And when you get about maybe 10 or 15 million degrees at the center of one of these collapsing clouds, because, there's nothing to stop the gravity. Here's a computer simulation of that actually happening. The cloud is collapsing and it's moving towards the center of the cloud there. Okay, computer simulation, not a real image. And so after about 100 million years of this, when the core temperatures in the cores of those clouds get hot enough, around 15 million degrees, give or take, you get the first stars. In other words, the temperature is hot enough so those hydrogen atoms at the center of the cloud start to undergo nuclear fusion. And when you got that, you got a star. In this particular picture, the Pleiades star cluster, you can see where some of the clouds that these stars formed in is still left over from that process. So that's how you get your first stars, when they hit around 15 million degrees. And then these stars start to create other elements. And it's just a normal process in these stars. And we'll talk about that. The process is nuclear fusion, and the hydrogen atoms are being combined to form helium atoms. Okay, here's a little diagram. So that focuses on the main process here. The gravity, which never sleeps, is pushing in and causing more pressure and higher temperatures. The fusion then occurs in the core of the star. The gravity is pushing in on the left over there, and on the right you see the radiation pressure from the fusion in the core of the star is pushing out. And at some point they will stabilize, where the pushing in from the gravity and the pushing out from the radiation pressure are the same, and so the star stabilizes and you have a stable star. Okay, and as it says in the lower left, a hydrogen is being converted into helium in the core of this star, and the helium moves to the core of the star because the helium's heavier. I'll show you that a little bit here. Here's a diagram of this process, by the way, where you create new atoms. In this case, the new atom is helium, is called nucleosynthesis. A synthesis is where you take some simple things and you put them together and you make something more complicated, which is what we're doing in fusion. All right, we're taking multiple simple atoms of hydrogen, putting them together in the process with the temperature at the core, and creating these helium atoms. And so we're going from lighter atoms into heavier atoms, right? And the important thing here, if you see the word energy there with the big red exclamation point, that's that fusion energy that pushes out, that pushes against the gravitational collapse that stabilizes the star. So this is an extremely simplified diagram of the process. 4 hydrogen atoms making some helium. It's way more complicated than that. We don't need to go into it. So that's where that energy that pushes against the gravity is coming from. And so because the helium has more protons than the hydrogen, it's heavier, so it sinks to the bottom of the star normally because of gravity, right? So the helium ends up in the core. The hydrogen is burning around it, and then there's a shell of hydrogen around all of that that's not burning in fusion, and it's kind of the way stars start out. Okay, helium in the center, hydrogen on the outside, and the fusion's going on in the middle. And then, so the hydrogen creates the helium, and as you can see, the hydrogen shell, the orange on the outside. And as I said, the helium is heavier, so it goes towards the center. Now, there's a lot of hydrogen in these stars. There's a lot of hydrogen in all the stars. Boy, there's a great book about that. I should have remembered the title of that. But anyway, there's a lot of hydrogen in these stars. They're huge, sometimes tens of times the mass of our sun. But they don't have an infinite amount of hydrogen. Eventually, you run out of hydrogen. So that means the fusion process stops. And that means there's none of that energy pushing out, and the gravity never sleeps. So it starts to collapse some more, which increases the pressure even more, which increases the temperature even more. And then the temperature gets high enough so that the helium starts to burn in the process of fusion. And when the helium atoms are combined, they're combined to create carbon, the red shell that you can see there. And again, you run out of helium. The gravity compresses some more. You start burning carbon. That becomes nitrogen. After a while, the same thing happens again. You probably see the pattern here. You start to burn nitrogen into oxygen. You start to burn oxygen into silicon. There's a lot of silicon in there. And by the way, each one of these processors lasts a shorter period of time, okay, for reasons which I won't bother you with. Trust me, things move along quickly. And you're burning the silicon, and when the silicon goes to fusion, it creates iron, and of course that's the heaviest item. So you end up with iron in the core of the star. And when you run out of silicon, again, the fusion energy output stops. The gravity doesn't sleep. It starts to collapse more and create higher pressure. And then you have an opportunity to start having the iron undergo fusion. And the bad news is that you can do that. The iron can go through the fusion process, but instead of putting out that energy that's keeping the star stable, it consumes energy in that process. There's no more of that energy pushing out against the gravity. And all of a sudden you have this huge star, 10 solar masses, 100 solar masses, whatever it is. And gravity says, oh, I'm going to collapse you completely because there's nothing to push back at me. And the entire body of that star, all of those solar masses, falls in towards the center of the star in minutes, maybe seconds. I can't see my upper left-hand corner because of anyway. And so I think in the upper left-hand corner, it talks to you about the speed at which this happens. I can't see it anymore on my screen. And all this stuff falling in an uncontrolled fashion hits the core of the star and bounces out. And the resulting temperature is somewhere around 10 billion degrees Kelvin or Fahrenheit or centigrade. But it's 10 billion. It doesn't matter what scale you're using. And you have this giant explosion. All this material falls in, hits the core, rebounds out, and you have a giant explosion. And that's a supernova, which, and here's a little supernova trivia for you, is a term first coined by Walter Body and Fritz Zwicky in 1931. So it's kind of an old idea, so to speak, about 90 years old. And this photograph, of course, is a beautiful image of a supernova remnant, the cloud left over from a supernova explosion. All right. And so huge temperatures. So when you have the temperatures that huge, which elements can you create? Anything. You can create anything. Okay. So, and this explosion is, the material is flying out, as it says here, 9% of the speed of light. And when it's flying out at that speed, there are pressure waves going through this cloud, tremendous pressure. And in that pressure and in the temperatures that were created, again, I already said it, you can create all the elements, not some of them, all of them. Now, so supernova. This is a very quick video from NASA, which and the narrator will explain what it is, but I suggest that you watch. There's a graph here. If you can you see my cursor, by the way, moving on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. If you see this red line here, it's tough to see now. And then there's a spike, and then it comes down, and then it goes back up again. So you watch that during the process, and the narrator will tell you what kind of a supernova thing we're looking at here. Were you able to hear that music?
Yes.
Okay, I will continue.
Astronomers have performed a great number of studies on collapsing stars, but capturing one in the optical wavelength during the early moments of explosion has proven elusive. That changed recently as scientists searching through a wealth of data gathered by the Kepler Space Telescope found what they have long been seeking. The bright flash of the shock wave, or as astronomers call it, the shock breakout, pushes outward as the distant body turned from star to supernova. Noted the lead astronomer on the team, in order to see something that happens in time scales of minutes, like a shock breakout, you want to have a camera continuously monitoring the sky. You don't know when a supernova is going to go off, and Kepler's vigilance allowed us to be a witness as the explosion began. The star was a massive one, estimated to be 500 times larger than our own sun.
Okay. This is the video to kind of show you what's going on. And here's some supernovas we've seen. The Whirlpool Galaxy on the left, minding his own business, not bothering anybody. And on the right, if you can see that little arrow there, is pointing to a supernova in that galaxy. The picture on the bottom in the middle, another beautiful galaxy. Look at those dust lanes. And the bright star to the left is a supernova in the outer reaches of that galaxy. So we can see them happening, obviously. Now, here is a GIF, a very jerky little video. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, this is a supernova remnant. Upper right-hand corner, you can see the years in which these various images were taken. So it's a 15-year video, if you will, of this supernova remnant. And so you can see that it's actually moving. We can see it expanding at a very high rate of speed. And you can see that expansion well. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, watch the blue edge go right past those two stars. And you might say, gee, it doesn't look like it's going very fast. But if you look that it's a 15-year time period, and this thing is 30,000 times the diameter of our solar system, well, you can get the idea that it is really moving pretty fast, and it's a very energetic event. And yeah, this is, as it says, the supernova that was observed by astronomer Tycho. So that's what the supernova remnants look like. And here's one where with spectroscopy, we can just see multiple elements in the supernova remnant. Oxygen, sulfur, iron, silicon, and they did the false color so you can identify the different elements based on the color. And where it says, like on the oxygen, it says 1 million EM, that's Earth masses. Okay, so they're trying to give an estimate, I'm sure it's just an estimate, of how many Earth masses of elements are created in the supernova explosions.
Jesus.
That's a lot. Now, here is your buddy, the table of elements, okay, periodic table of elements, and based on the scale over here, or the scale, you can see which elements were created. Now, by which process? Now, I told you that the elements that are created in the supernova is all the elements, and you can certainly see exploding massive stars and dying low mass stars is all the yellow and green. They think some of the stuff like hydrogen and helium, well, I'm sure we're certain hydrogen and helium was created in the Big Bang. The light blue stuff, exploding white dwarfs. But when they say exploding white dwarfs, that's another form of supernova. And then the brown is so-called merging neutron stars, which is a new discovery in recent years. However, I had the opportunity to see a presentation by a group of astrophysicists who do nothing but study supernova. And I asked them after their presentation, I said, okay, I give this presentation here. I need to know the latest information about a supernova. Where do I get that information? And he says, when we change the theories, when we make discoveries or observations, we change the theories, we put that information in the wiki page for supernova. So he says, if you want to get the latest information, go to the supernova wiki page. And if you look at it now, you will see that it's been updated, I don't know, 30 or 40 times in 2021, for instance. They keep it very much up to date. And up at the top there, you'll see that it's, this is from this astrophysicist. He said that the supernova is responsible for half of all the isotopes of elements beyond iron. And also that neutron star mergers may be the main source for a lot of these elements also. So yeah, the neutron star mergers are definitely responsible, but you can get all this stuff from supernova too, all of it. And if you kind of forgot what the periodic table of elements is like, I have a little musical interlude here for you.
In 1869, Dmitri Mendeleev could see that properties of elements varied periodically. As atomic number increases, the properties repeat in a soothing rhythmic pattern that can form a funky beat. The elements we know about, they number 114. Some in quantities so small that they've never been seen. Most are common elements that are far and wide dispersed, but all of them together make up all the universe. Elements in group 1 are called the alkalis. They explode in water and are of very tiny size. They love to lose electrons when they form a bond. Of these reactive atoms, I can say I'm rather fond. Group 2 elements are often called alkaline earth. Calcium's been building bones since well before your birth. They form nice +2 ions and are generally quite fun, though they're not quite as reactive as the metals in group 1. Since 1869, every one of us could see that properties of elements vary periodically. As atomic number increases, the properties repeat in a soothing rhythmic pattern that can form a funky beat. Metals in groups 3 through 12 transition elements. Some of them are lightweight and others really dense. Things they have in common, they form charges 2 or more. And some form colored compounds, which is something we adore. If you want an element, just tell me once again. If it's in group 17, you've got a halogen. Non-metals so corrosive, they're not found in their pure state. They can gain electrons like they're going out of date. Got one for you in group 18, it's known as noble gas. If you're looking for an element that just sits there on its... If you wonder why and haven't figured it out yet, their valence configuration is a big stable octet. So now it should be obvious that everyone should see that properties of elements vary periodically. As atomic number increases, the properties repeat in a soothing rhythmic pattern that can form a funky beat.
Okay. I hope I didn't see anybody dancing. I hope that wasn't too long. So, supernova. 2 things happen in the supernova. You create all those elements and you explode. So you take all those elements and you throw them in all directions, kind of like a dandelion flower going to seed. Everything that's a part of this dandelion flower ends up in your neighbor's yard so that they can have dandelion flowers too. Okay, and so that's similar to what happens with the supernova. And so what do you get from that? Well, so you end up with those same clouds of gas all over the universe, except now those clouds of gas have the dust. And when I say the dust, I mean all the heavy elements besides just hydrogen and helium. The universe is now filled with those clouds. And the same thing happens that happened with the clouds before. They're big, they've got a lot of mass, they have a lot of gravity, they collapse, they get to increase the pressure, they increase the temperature, and you end up with some new stars forming. And these stars now have all the elements in it. And when the star forms, some of the cloud is left over, and those elements are in those clouds that are around the star after the stars form. And here's a photograph of that. Here's some stars that formed in a cloud full of dust, and you can see the dust around that star. And of course, due to the physics of the conservation of angular momentum, the whole thing starts to spin when it collapses, right? And you form a star is born with a big spinning cloud of dust, heavy elements around it. And of course, because of gravity, those things come together, form planetesimals, and then they form planets. And then you got yourself kind of like a nice little solar system, all right? And here's actually photographs of that happening. The top two photographs, the top two images are actually photographs. The bottom two are just drawings to kind of help you understand what you're looking at. In both of the two upper photographs, the star in the middle is blocked by a black circle with a white cross on it. And all the bright stuff around the star is infrared radiation coming from the dust that's around the star. On the one on the left, we're seeing it kind of edge on. The one on the right, we're seeing it from a polar view, so to speak. So we can actually see these dust clouds rotating around the new stars out there. And of course, that's where our sun came from. And it has a whole bunch of elements in it. Here's a one where I saw this image where you can actually see the iron at different temperatures in the corona of the sun. So, and you can bet that's not the only element that's in the sun, right? And here's another one with spectroscopy. We're able to identify by the color there. There's a false colors, of course, but they're identified as hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. And you can see that in this cloud forming around a new star. And again, from these supernova astrophysicists, they estimate inside the Earth, and of course, that's an estimate. We need at least 10 supernova neutron star mergers to make the elements that we see in the star, in the Earth. Are you still hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I got a message on my screen that my internet's unstable. Anyway, so as we said, the elements are in the Earth. The plants grow, we eat them, and then we end up with all those elements in our body. 96% is just 4 elements: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. Of course, a large amount of the oxygen and hydrogen is water. We're 70-some% water. And then carbon and nitrogen, and then all those other trace elements you see over on the right. Okay, and so now we know where the elements came from, and we know how they got in our body. And so this pretty much explains those red lines you saw in the eye. I don't care if you're male or female, if you're young or old, or where you come from, when you were born, you got those same red lines in your eye. This is true for everybody. And that gets me to this image here. And it kind of expresses what I wanted to say, the thing that I discovered 50 some years ago, that all the atoms in our body were created in stars that died billions of years ago. Now, this is not a real nebula. Don't look for the Children Profile Nebula out there, but it's the profile was created from an image, a real image of a nebula. And it just says what I'm trying to express here, and that was we are made of stardust, as someone has said. And so we are star children. And again, when I learned that 50 years ago, what came to my mind is it's not a situation where I'm here and the universe is out there. The universe is far away. Everything I am came from the universe out there. And so, boy, oh boy, it got me really interested in astronomy. And that's mostly what I wanted to tell you. I would say thank you very much for your attention, and thanks for the opportunity. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry, almost forgot. Here's that bolt that I showed you early. I don't know if you can see my picture. I got that bolt right over here. It's not an ordinary bolt, as I think I alluded to earlier. I acquired this bolt in 1981 when I got a private tour of Kennedy Space Center. They don't do that anymore, okay? Bet your bottom dollar. And I got the bolt while I was looking at this Apollo launch pad, which was there then. I think it's still there now. I do not know. Back in the 1967, there was a Saturn rocket sitting on top of it. And the man on the left is the engineer who gave us the tour. That's my wife on the right. And we got this tour and we're at the launch pad. And I saw this bolt in the launch pad and I said, boy, can I take that? And he said, well, you know, we kind of discourage people from taking our stuff. But he said, you know, there's something in the opposite direction I have to look at for a while. So he turned around and I acquired the bolt. And so as we have learned, the iron was created in the stars billions of years ago, ends up in the earth. We dig it up and we make bolts and machines, and we use them to go back to the stars. Okay. Now this is an Apollo rocket from that era, and it didn't go to the stars as such, but it was our first steps into outer space, or some of our first steps. And so I consider it I was impressed that it was a form of cosmic recycling of sorts. Okay. And so again, that's what got me and kept me very, very interested in astronomy. Again, thank you for your time and your attention. I'm finished. I'm certainly available for questions if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Please go ahead.
You mentioned that after this compression occurs and then the supernovas and the exploding phase, you mentioned a specification of 0.9 times the speed of light, or 9% of the speed of light. How do they measure that? I've never heard that spec before.
Well, I'll go out on a limb here and tell you that you probably know I didn't measure it. Okay. How you measure that? Well, there's two ways of measuring that. First of all, we kind of understand the physics of supernova. Generally, there's plenty of questions about supernova, but we generally know what's going on. Like I said, we've been thinking about them for 90 years. And as I tried to show in that GIF kind of little 15-year video, we can actually observe the motion of the cloud, the supernova remnants. And so we're actually making observations of the actual motion of this stuff so we can see how fast they're moving. And between those two things, what we know about the physics and what we actually see happening in supernova remnant, these astrophysicists, not me, come up with that estimate of the speed of the expansion of the supernova remnant. I hope that answers your question. That's as good a one as I can give you.
It does.
Okay. Thanks for the question.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Where can I get a copy of that video about the elements? That was so entertaining.
You don't mean the music?
Well, it must be a little video, right?
Oh, since you were watching it, you know it was a long video. But
really good.
Yeah, I got it in this place. What do we call that thing? The internet. It's out there someplace. Now, I put this presentation together many years ago, and I've been updating it and keeping it up to date. Okay, I don't remember where I got that. However, I will, Terry, I will find out, and I will try to send it to the club. Terry, maybe I should send it to you, and you can put it in the newsletter. Or any ideas, Terry?
Who asked the question?
It said something like element funkiness, but I just thought it was extremely entertaining.
Yeah, there was only one with music. Okay.
Yeah, that was the one.
That was the one, right?
He was singing,
Yeah.
Anyway, if you find it, I would love to share that.
I will look.
I just put the link in the chat.
I loved your talk. Thank you so much.
Well, you are welcome. Thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Hey, Bill, I just put the link to the YouTube video in the chat.
Oh, so anybody can see it. You can play that music over and over and over again, you know, to lull you to sleep or something. Yeah.
So it only took you about 30 seconds to find that, didn't it, Dawn?
Yeah, give or take.
Okay. So does that mean the person asking for the video doesn't need any more, or do you want to get the link right to the video only?
I'm trusting that Dawn's got the right link. So Susie, you can read the chat here and copy that link off.
But that's the link to the YouTube, or is it the link to the video?
It is a YouTube video, I assume.
It's a link to the video on YouTube.
Oh, good Lord. You guys are so fast.
Yes, sir. I linked directly to it. I went straight
Wow.
to it. It came right up.
All right, there you go. So now you know I wasn't the one who was singing.
I got a question, Bill.
Yes, sir.
We have to go back to your slide where you show the 5 sources of nucleosynthesis for the different elements and where they came from. So you got the supernova.
You mean the periodic table of elements?
Yeah, the periodic table with that overlay. There was a.
Am I still being shared?
Right there, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So there's a category in here that's silver, very radioactive isotopes, nothing left in star. I'm just trying to figure out what this silver business is all about.
I think they're just commenting on the 4 elements you see to the left of that comment. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know all of my element abbreviations there. I don't know what those are.
I noticed that 43 technetium is in there, and I've heard that technetium was unique in having a very specific set of circumstances to create it.
Yes, I see.
Technetium does not occur in nature. My degree is in chemistry. Anything beyond plutonium does not occur in nature. The reason for things beyond plutonium not occurring in nature is that they only live for seconds. And it's been so long, it would take so long for something to come from another star system here that it would radioactively decay and not exist when it got here.
Yes, I believe a quick way of summarizing this up is the stuff that I was talking about from the supernova is the so-called naturally occurring elements. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the Fermilab and in the Large Hadron Collider, they can make all kind of stuff and all kind of atomic reactors. They can make elements that, as he mentioned, exist for extremely short periods of time, and those are the unnaturally occurring elements.
Correct.
Artificial.
Yeah. And the whole name technetium comes from the fact that it has to be made by technical means. It does not exist in nature.
There you go. So I've got a piece of iron, but I don't have any of those other fancy ones.
So that reminds me, I had an observation early on when you were talking about the Big Bang and the first series of elements. So we started out with hydrogen. Maybe, Jim, I'm going to do a philosophical thing. When there was nothing but hydrogen in the universe, did chemistry even exist? So it's like the rules of chemistry were there, but there was nothing to really do with them because all you had hydrogen and helium. Okay. But I don't know of any elements that are molecules that are a combination of hydrogen and helium. So it's like the rules of chemistry were waiting for some of these elements to be developed before they could ever be applied. I don't know. It's a meta thing in my head. I thought was kind of interesting.
I think that's a reasonable statement. I believe, and probably there's people who know about this more than I do, but chemistry is all about electrons, okay? Not nuclear stuff, right?
Yes.
And the early hydrogen is just protons. I'm going to guess when it was the hot universe, the electrons were completely separated from the protons. So I think you're right, Terry, that chemistry just wasn't happening, but the laws of nature were still there, just waiting for electrons to get attached. When the universe cooled enough, the electrons can get on the nucleus, and now chemistry can happen, I suppose, to some extent.
Yeah, but it's still fusion and the other processes to build up the more complicated nuclei. So
Correct.
I mean, once you had carbon, then the possibilities exploded because carbon combines in so many different ways. But I guess it's all through the electrons, like you say. But
Yep.
that potential was always sitting there. Man, when I get carbon, I'm going to have fun.
Sure.
Yeah, carbon is unique in that carbon can bind to carbon and form chains that are essentially infinitely long. No other element can do that. And basically that's why carbon is the basis for life, is you can build up infinitely complicated molecules that will do all kinds of wondrous stuff.
Such as hemoglobin.
They have to be built from carbon.
Exactly.
Oh, I got another question, Bill.
Yes, go ahead.
So you got red blood from a human, you've got blue blood from a crab. What element is in that hemoglobin molecule for a Vulcan to get green?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because if you look on that internet thing again, you will find that it is also copper for the Vulcan. Now, you saw the picture of the blue blood, right? But, you know, if you take copper and you leave it outside, it kind of turns green. And that, again, I do believe is the oxygen mixing with it. Now, you know, there's different chemistry that can get involved here. I don't know the exact answer. I think we could get a definite answer if we could talk to the late Gene Roddenberry. But short of that, you got the red humans and the blue crabs and the green. And by the way, if you look at Spock, and I was just looking at him yesterday, come to think of it. If you look at him, you know, you look at it closely at his eyes, there's red lines in there. But, you know, that's Hollywood. What can I say?
Well, it stands to reason. It makes perfect sense if you consider that we only view his blood after it's been exposed to the oxygen. So the oxidization of the copper in his blood could turn it green.
I could not possibly argue with that. Fantastic. Thank you. Whoever said that. Perfect.
Don, it also could be the oxidation state. Our blood is red when it's fully oxygenated. When we're cold, or when we have carbon dioxide attached to the hemoglobin rather than oxygen, so when the blood is coming back to our lungs, it's blue. So our blood changes color depending on temperature and oxygen content. Spock's blood could change color also depending on temperature and oxygen content.
That must explain why I'm sometimes so crabby.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just guessing. I don't
Crabby
know.
if I'm cold, yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, anybody else have a question for Bill?
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dennis. I'll go after you.
Well, I just want to make a quick comment. First, Bill, it was a delightful presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And one thing that impressed me about this presentation is I can almost see it being successfully presented to an elementary school class and a college class too, because of the material,
Yes.
the way you varied the presentation in it. I was really impressed by it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments. And the first time I gave this presentation was to the 5th grade when that teacher asked me to do so. And I've certainly given it to adults, community centers, many high school, anybody who, you know, will sit still for a while.
It really works.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's you know, I got a lot of presentations. It's my favorite one.
You know, okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time here, but unfortunately, both of us are old enough where I think you may remember, I think it was back in the late 50s, there were some series on TV, and I don't remember who produced them, but they were like Our Friend the Sun and the Heart, and they were on either CBS, probably CBS, and they were 1 hour shows that were given a lot like the range of presentation you just gave, where a popular audience of newbies, if you will, in science, and more sophisticated people could be attracted to it. And I can't remember who put those on, but that's the flavor I get from your presentation.
Well, maybe I was inspired by them. I think you might be talking about the Bell telephone.
It might have been Bell Telephone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have been.
Technology people, you know, and they want to advertise their name. So I really enjoyed those too. Thank you.
Oh, they were delightful. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
I seem to recall the films from, well, they were shown in my high school days, but they were filmed in the mid 50s called Hemo the Magnificent, and they do the full explanation of blood and what it's connected with, and it's yeah, it is what it is. But of note, Klingons have purple blood, so is that a mix of the blue and red blood? That's one thing. And two, you showed us this bolt, and it's the only sample of one of these elements you have. One of our members who couldn't be here tonight, Jamie, has spent years building a periodic table. She's built up the whole chart and collecting a sample of everything that she can safely store and build to build herself a wall, I guess a display with the real element samples on it. She spent a lot of time working on this thing, and she still is collecting pieces and parts. And of course, there's not much of the scary radioactive stuff and what have you there, but she's probably got 50 or 60 of the elements that you can get in solid or liquid form.
Yeah, that must be very, very impressive. You know, I live about 30 miles west of Houston right now. And in Sugar Land, there's a town here, Sugar Land, which I heard one of our members there lives there. There's the Houston Science Museum has another museum there in Sugar Land. Okay, not just downtown Houston, they have one in Sugar Land, and they have what you're describing right now, the whole wall with all the elements, the samples of them, and it's delightful. It's very nice. Great idea.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Don just put up a link to the Bell System sign-up series. That is what I saw. That was Hemo the Magnificent.
Okay, so Dawn is what, the fastest person on the internet that I
just tell her what you're looking for.
Wow.
I don't pride myself on much, but one of my superpowers is if it exists on the internet, I can find it.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, I guess we can go ahead and wrap this meeting up. Any business type questions or procedure questions or planning questions that anybody might have out there before we adjourn?
Hi, this is Bill. I do have one question. And maybe it's too late to get into this, but maybe at the next meeting, I would love to hear people's opinions about eclipse viewing in, what is it, 2 years from now or whatever it is? 2 years from now. Yeah, April, I think, right?
So there's two coming up. There's an annular eclipse that's coming up in October of 2023. And then the total solar eclipse is going to be April 8th of 2024. And I'm happy to provide any information for anybody that's interested, because I am actually the head of a core group of pretty much task forces around the Hill Country from different counties.
Okay. Well, my specific
eclipses occurs over the town of Utopia, Texas.
Actually, Bandera is at the crossroads. And if we're lucky, the timing and the planning will go just right, because the October annular eclipse falls around the time that El Dorado Star Party would usually take place, and they are within the viewing area.
My specific question is for what's a good location, like especially for the total eclipse. And again, I'm not looking for an answer right now, but maybe at the next meeting we could discuss that just for planning purposes. My experience has been you can't wait for the month before to figure out what you're going to do.
No, in fact, the task forces from all the various counties that we meet with have been meeting for over a year now in preparation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. I'm looking for suggestions whenever you got them.
You got it, Bill.
Thank you.
Viewing the eclipse here in Texas is going to be infinitely easier than having to go to Wyoming to see the one in 2017.
You are correct, sir.
Get wherever it is you're going to get and figure to stay there a day or two.
For sure.
Don't try to go anywhere. So just go, hey, it's a camping trip. I'm just going to hang out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, to give you just a general idea, in in talking with some folks within the Llano County area, Llano County is about 26,000 people in total, and a similar county with the similar demographics and numbers during the 2017 eclipse saw an increase of 60,000 people in Chickasaw County alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention, we also have the added challenge that only half of Austin City and San Antonio will actually be able to view the total eclipse. So we're going to have a lot of folks scrambling from the east side headed west.
Ooh.
Didn't we double the size of Casper?
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. I was up there. There would have been more people, but we were already shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah,
But wait,
Brian's
Dawn.
got the right idea, saying figure out where you're going to go and stay there, because I can't imagine what the traffic is going to be like. And for those of us that went to Casper and left a few hours after the end of the eclipse, it took us 9 hours to get to it.
Yes. Yes.
It was definitely a challenge, but like I said, figure a couple of days, chilling out, do some observing.
That's reasonable.
It also might be a good idea that once you do pick a site, go look up the history of the weather directly over that site. We have a friend who does exactly that. And, there's something to look for. What is the typical average day every year on that date on that site? What's the weather like?
Yeah.
Well, and if you have anybody that you know, family or friends that are looking to come in for that time and are going to require lodging, just to give you an idea, the city of Blanco is already sold out on lodging accommodations for that week.
I imagine Llano is probably right behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are you going to do?
You can Airbnb your storage shed.
Make friends with people with large swaths of land in the hill country.
Exactly.
All right.
Time to find a spot and put up my yurt. Figure I'm going to be in it a few days.
Yeah. Set up your post, your tripod in concrete now.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to turn off a few things here and spend a little while shutting down. So anybody has any last minute chatting to do. First, I got to kill the live share.
Thank you for the meeting. It was great. I'm going to leave.